another sewing tutorial. My name is Ann-Sophie and I'm the person behind Sewing with Solana, and today we are gonna make a dress, which I call it the alley dress. And like the alley dress, like Alley Beach is like a place in North Queensland, like north of Australia. And when I designed the dress, I wanted to make like the perfect summer dress that you can wear like to the beach, something that's like super like flowy, good for hot days with an open back. Yeah, and then I just like when I first designed it, I didn't know what to call it, so I just wrote beachy dress on it. But then I realized when I launched it for my clothing brand, that's not a nice name for a piece of clothing, so I was like brainstorming 5 minutes before launching the piece. Yeah, and so I called it alley dress, but doesn't really matter, that story. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is that it's a super nice dress for hot summer days. And it's also a nice dress that you can wear to the beach, but then you can also super easily like style it up, and it also depends what fabric you're using, so we should talk about what fabric I would recommend you. I'm gonna make mine with muslin cotton. I've made the dress in muslin cotton before a couple weeks ago, and I love how it turned out. But when I first started making it and when I made it for my clothing brand, I was using a blend of linen and viscose, which is like also a super nice fabric. And basically what you should look for in the fabric is that it falls nicely, that it's not too heavy, that it just like is super flowy and airy, because we're gonna have quite a lot of fabric for our skirt. Like we're gonna gather the fabric and then there's gonna be a lot of fabric. So yeah, I can recommend maybe viscose, a linen and viscose blend. I'm gonna use muslin cotton. And of course there's so many other fabrics that you can use, but I can only speak now from my own experience. And I'm gonna make mine in white, and white fabric is always a tiny bit see-through, but for me I don't mind it because I just wear nude colored underwear, and then for me personally, I feel super comfortable. But yeah, if you make it in another fabric, in another color, please send me some photos, I would love to see it. And I'm gonna link the sewing pattern in the description here, and then you can download it. You're gonna be able to download it in in A4 and in A0. I printed mine out in A0 now. Depends like what's more comfortable for you. I really need to get a printer at home so I can print mine out in A4 at home. And right now I'm still going to a copy shop, and it is more expensive when you print it out in A0, but it also saves you a lot of time because you don't have to glue all the pieces together. And when I got mine printed, I realized that you need to print 2 A0 files or pages, which is a bit annoying, so I'm gonna try to rearrange the sewing, like the patterns, a bit better, so you only need to print 1. Maybe right now I have the long straps that we need to cut out also printed on there as a sewing pattern, but maybe I'll be able to take it away and then squeeze everything else onto 1 page. But yeah, we'll see. You live in the future, so if you have purchased a sewing pattern and you are looking at the A0 now, you know if you have to print 1 or 2 pages. But anyway, we need to take our measurements now. You need to take your bust, waist and hip measurements, and then you go to the size chart to find your right size. And then you go over to the size key on your printed out pattern, and then you find, either depends if you print it out in color or in black and white. And yeah, then you just either follow the color, or because all sizes have different lines, like different dotted lines, you can just follow your right dotted line. So we cut it out, and then we go and cut out our fabric. So let's go. So the first thing I'm doing now is I'm going to cut the strap, and if you're also working with muslin fabric, you can follow me here. This fabric you can rip super easily. So instead of making a lot of marks for the 5 centimeters, because the strap needs to be 5 centimeters wide, you can just make 1 cut at 5 centimeters and then we rip it. And otherwise just take your measuring tape and measure along, and then you can cut it out. But yeah, I'm going to show you how I do it. So I'm just measuring from the top 5 centimeters down. Then I make a cut here. And then I'm gonna make another one because we need 2 straps in the end. And now I'm gonna rip the first one. And the second one. And here we have our long straps, so we just put them to the side. And now it's time to place the pattern on the fabric and cut it out. So as you can see, here the fabric is open, which means here it is folded, and now I take my sewing pattern, and here where it says fold line, I'm going to place it where the fabric is folded, and now I'm going to pin it onto the fabric and cut it out. Now I take the needles out, and even though this sewing pattern is different to the front, I'm still going to just put one needle into the fabric to remind me that this is the back of the dress. And now I put it to the side. So now that we have cut out the top, there's a few things we need to do here. The first thing is, because we have our 2 darts, I'm going to stick a needle right in the corner here. And I'm going to do the same on this side. And then what I'm also doing, I'm going to make a small cut here. Here, make sure that the cut is not any more than 1/2 centimeter. One here and one here. And then also we have a notch here and a notch here. So I'm also going to make a small cut here and on the other side as well. And then we can take the needles out. Make sure that those stay where we put them. And then you can flip it over. And now, because we have 2 layers, because we need to cut it out twice, I'm slowly pulling the layers apart and stick a needle on this layer at the exact same spot. And the same on this side. So now it looks like this. So we have 2 little cuts here, 2 little cuts on this side, one here and one here. So now it's time to start sewing, and we're going to start with our long straps. And what we do, we take one of them and then we fold it in half. And here on this side the fabric is folded, and we're going to sew with a 1 centimeter seam allowance along here. So we're going to start at the top, and then we're going to sew along here with a 1 centimeter seam allowance away from the folded edge. I have my sewing machine set to a straight stitch, and my stitch length is at 2.5 and width is at 0. My needle is in the middle, and then my tension needs to be at 5, but I think you should always check your tension when you start sewing a project with a new fabric. So now we need to cut off some of the excess fabric, because when we flip it inside out, we don't want too much fabric there. So I'm just going to cut relatively close to our stitching, but make sure not to get too close to the stitching. And now we need to flip it inside out. So either you can do it with a safety pin, or you can also use one of those loop turners and you put it in through one side until you come out at the other end again. Push it through the fabric and then you close it and then you carefully pull it over. So this is what it will look like, and now you need to do the same to the other straps. So at the end you have two of them, and what we need to do now is we need to cut 6 centimeters off at each of the straps. So I'm just gonna measure 6 centimeters, cut it off, and then I'm gonna do the same to the other one. So now that we have cut 2 6 centimeters pieces off, we just put all of that to the side. So now we focus on the top of the dress, and here we have our 2 top pieces, but first we start with one so we can put the other one to the side. And what we need to do is we need to sew the dart. So we need to sew one dart here and one dart here, and then we're going to do the same to the other side. And then we sew them together, and we also sew in the straps. And as you have just seen, when I start sewing here, I front and back stitch, but at the end I don't. What I'm doing instead is I'm gonna twirl them apart again, and I always find it easiest if I take a needle, stick it through here, just so they're separated, the 2 threads. And now I'm making 3 knots in here. And now I cut it off, but don't cut it super close to the knot, leave a 1 or 2 centimeters. And here, because we front and back stitch, we can also cut this off. And now I'm going to do the same to this side. So this is what it looks like, and this is going to be the inside, and this will be the outside. We are going to iron this. But yeah, now we're going to do the same to the other side, and then we go over to the iron. And what we're doing now, we're going to iron the darts that we have sewn down. So we're going to do this on this side, and also on this side, and then also on the other top. So what we're going to do next, we're going to lay one of the tops in front of us with the good side facing us. And by good side, I mean like here we can see the dart, so this is going to face the table. Then we're going to take one strap and place it here. And then we take another strap and we're going to place it right here. And do you remember when we made the little notches here? In the end, we're gonna take one of the 6 centimeter long pieces here, fold them in half, and one will be sewn in here. And then the other one, we're gonna take, also fold it in half, and put it over here. And then we're gonna take another, like the next top piece, and sandwich the straps. And again, we want this time the bad side facing us, so where you can see the dart is going to face us, so the 2 good sides are facing each other. So this is what it looks like now. And we're going to start sewing here, all the way along here, sew in the straps over here, sew in the strap over here, and then down here. And I would always recommend here where we're sewing in the loops and where we're sewing in the straps to go in 2 times just to make sure they're really sewn in correctly. And I always, when there's like a corner, I always make sure that the needle is down, then I lift the foot up, and then I can turn the fabric super easily. And when we're coming to the darts here, make sure they're staying down, so maybe sometimes it's helpful taking like a needle or something to help you guide it. What we're doing now is we're just going to cut off the corners here, because at the next up we need to flip it the right side out, and it's just going to look nicer when there's less fabric built up. Now we're gonna flip it inside out, or like the right side being out, how we want it to be at the end. So we're just gonna pull on the straps, pull them out, make sure that the loops are out nicely on the other side too. And now we're just gonna iron it a bit. So this is what we have now, and the next step is that we need to attach the front of the skirt of the dress to this part here. So this is the front pattern piece, and what we're doing now, so here the fabric was folded, and now we unfold it. And right now it doesn't matter what's the top and what's the bottom, because they're identical. So we're just going to decide for one part to be the top now. And what we're going to do now, we're going to start over here and make a stitch all the way to the other end. And because we want to gather the fabric together, so we're going to do it with a long stitch. So you're going to set your stitch length to as high as possible. And then we're going to make the stitch quite close to the edge. So here with my sewing machine, like I'm just going to... So with my sewing machine, I'm just going to leave this the same, and just the only thing I'm changing is the stitch length. I'm going to put it to 4, and then my needle position, I'm going to move it to the right, and this way I'm sewing closer to the edge of the fabric. And it's important now that you don't front and back stitch, so you just start and keep going. So now we take our top again, and you want to have the side that you want to be the outside of your dress to be facing you. So I want this to be the outside of my top, because right now they're both, like, they look exactly the same. Like, it doesn't really matter, but if there's maybe one side you like better, then you can now put it facing you. And then you take the front of the skirt that we have just gathered together, And what you need to do now, you need to measure 1.5 centimeters from the edge here, from the top where we have made the long stitch. And you measure 1.5 centimeters from the edge, and then you just stick a needle in here. And then what you're doing next, you're gonna come over here to the edge of the top, and you line the needle up with the edge of the fabric of the top here, and pin it together, because we want to have around 1.5 centimeters hanging off here. And now we're doing exactly the same to the other side. We're also measuring 1.5 centimeters. Stick a needle in here. And pin it together. So now it looks like this. And we are gonna hold on to one of the threads here, not to both, just one. And now we can slowly gather the fabric together. And you can pull first on one side, and then you can go over to the other side. And we just want to make sure that the fabric is gathered evenly, so it looks nice. So maybe this will take you a minute. And the goal is that this part of the fabric is as long as the part of the top. So maybe you have to play around a bit till it's exactly where you want it to be. And then you can go ahead and pin some more needles in it, and then we're going to sew it together. So this is what it should look like, and now we're going to start sewing from here till over here. So this is what it looks like now. Here again is what the inside looks like, what we have just sewn. So now we're going to start overlocking from here all the way till the end. If you don't have an overlock machine, just do it with your normal sewing machine at a zigzag option. So now we are finished with the front of the dress, and we can put it to the side now. And now it's time to focus on the back of the dress before we sew it to the front, because we do need to do a little bit of preparation for it. And what we need to do. So when we were cutting out the back piece, the fabric was folded in half, so it looked like this. And as you can see, the bottom here is straight and the top is slightly curved. And what we're doing, we're folding it open again, and we're going to focus on the curved part here, like all this up here. Because what we want to do, we want to fold it down 0.5 centimeter all the way along here, all the way the top. Fold it down 0.5 centimeter and iron it. And then it's time to create the tunnel for our elastic. My elastic is 1 centimeter wide. And because my elastic is 1 centimeter wide, we are then going to fold it down 1.5 centimeters, and then we're going to sew it, and then we're going to pull the elastic through. But yeah, now we have to go over to our iron and first fold it down 0.5 centimeter and then iron it. This is what it looks like now, and now we're gonna stitch quite close to the edge, just along here. now it's time to cut off the elastic. I'm a size small. I'm gonna make my elastic 27 centimeters long. And in the instructions that you get with your sewing pattern, there's gonna be a section where I'm gonna give you advice of how long your elastic should be for your size. But I always want to make sure that you know that each elastic is different. Like some people use elastic, or like I went to the fabric store the other day and there were like so many different elastics and all of them were so different. Like some are more tight, some are more stretchy. So I'm just giving you advice. I would always recommend you to maybe at the beginning make it a few more centimeters longer, and then you can always open a few stitches up again and pull some more elastic out and cut the elastic that's too much simply off. But yeah, so I'm using 27 centimeters. You can just follow the advice I give you in the instructions for your size. But yeah, I would always make it a bit longer at the beginning, and then you can figure it out how you want it to sit once you have tried it on. So once you have your elastic, you're gonna put one safety pin through one end and one through the other end, and then you start pushing it through our tunnel. And then once this part is almost inside, I would recommend taking the safety pin off. And now we go to the sewing machine and we're just gonna sew the elastic onto the fabric. So I would really recommend going over it quite a few times to make sure it's safe. So this is what it will look like, and now we're just going to continue pulling the elastic through. And now you can take the safety pin out, just make sure that it's not going to snap back again. Maybe it would even be a good idea to take a pin and pin this all in place. Then you can take the safety pin off. And now we're going to do the same that we did on the other side. We're just going to sew this onto the fabric. So we're just going to go over here. So now again we need to take the front of our dress with the good side facing us, and it's very important now that, so you see this part, right? Like this is what it looks like, this is what it looks like here. And now when we sew the back on it, we don't want this to be up, we want this to be down. So it's gonna be folded down, and then now we're gonna pin the back on this side. Just make sure that this overlock part is folded down. And now we're taking the back, and make sure that the good sides are facing each other. And by good sides I mean this I would consider the good side, and this I would consider the bad side. So good sides are facing each other, which means the bad side is facing us. And now we're gonna start pinning the sides together. And now we're gonna start sewing from here to there or from there to here, it doesn't really matter. And then we also need to do the same on this side over here. So now we have to press the side seams that we have just sewn on both sides, like we have sewn the front and the back together. And now we have to press the seams open, and then we're gonna overlock them. And then there's 2 more steps left that I will show you as we go. But yeah, once we have overlocked side seams, I would recommend you to try your dress on. No, actually, before you overlock it, yes. Okay, so now is a good time to try your dress on, because now you can check if the elastic has a good length. Because when we overlock it, then you would also have to open the overlock part again. So try your dress on right now to see if the elastic fits nicely or if you have to change it. And then we're going to press the seams open, overlock it, and while you try the dress on now, also figure out how long you want your hem to be and how long you want your dress to be. So yeah, try it on, and then we meet back at our iron. So now at the top here, we need to hide the rest of the overlock seam here. So we're going to take a big needle and push it through here. Oops. And what I want us to do now, when we look at the dress now, there's like this seam. I want us to sew it onto the front part. So we're just gonna sew now from here 2 or 1.5 centimeters down and back up again. And we're gonna sew this side seam onto the front. And then we're gonna do the same on this side. We're gonna start up here and just gonna sew down and up again. So now I've put my dress on just to figure out how wide I want my hem to be. When I designed this dress, it was my intention to make it like a short, sexy dress, you know. But everyone can now decide how long or short they want their dress to be. I'm going to show you what mine looks like now before it's hemmed. So this is it. And I think I'm going to make my hem 2 centimeters, so I'm going to fold it up 2 centimeters and then 2 centimeters again, and I'm going to show you now how to do it. Now it depends a bit, so now you need to make sure that the inside of your dress is facing you, so the seams are facing you. And now you can take your measuring tape and measure how much you want to fold up your fabric, and then fold it up twice, and then you can stick a needle in it, and you can do that all the way around. And I would recommend you to do that if you're new to sewing, and I don't know, a lot of people, even when you're good at sewing, it's still a good idea to do it. But I'm just gonna go over to my sewing machine straight away and fold it and sew it at the same time.